everybody, it's Steve with the Plastic Adventures toy community, and on this episode of Plastic Bits, we're going to be taking a look at another one of these hidden gem toy lines. But this time, it's going to be one where you look at it and say, "Oh my gosh, I remember those," but you don't remember where they came from. You don't remember what they're called. So why don't you join me on this quick look at Robotech Robolinks.
Hey, I had one of those. Yeah, as it turns out, a lot of us did. Whether you got one of these under your tree for Christmas, got it from a birthday, or from some aunt or uncle that just didn't know what a transformer really was, everybody seems to remember these little guys, but they can't quite remember just where they came from. As it turns out, these are called Robolinks, and they're an offshoot from the Robotech toy line in the 80s. But they really don't look like Robotech, do they? Well, there's kind of a reason for that. And before we get into where Robolinks came from, it's important to know what was going on at the time. So at the time, a company called Harmony Gold had seen the success of the Transformers toy line and decided that they would be the next great cash grab to capitalize on the giant robot craze. They imported an anime series, which was the Super Dimensional Fortress Macross, and rebranded it as Robotech, and sort of patched in a couple of other anime series so that they could have enough episodes for syndication. But instead of what we got with Transformers, which was an incredibly streamlined and well-packaged hodgepodge of robots, we ended up having Harmony Gold license out the rights to several different companies for several different types of products. And what we ended up with was sort of a mishmash of different packaging and toy styles coming together. And probably the reason why you don't remember Robolinks is because the packaging was so vastly different from the main line of action figures. Matchbox pulled duties on the main line as well as some of the miniature figures, and as you can see in this picture, they actually came together really well. You had a line of 3 3/4 inch figures as well as vehicles that they could interact with, and a playset as well. As you can see here, the main line had really great painted art, which was pretty consistent with what they were doing in the 80s. Bright colors, and everything except for the crown piece of the collection looked really terrific in this line. Unfortunately, the toy we got for the Veritech Fighter didn't really match up to how cool it looked on the box art. So what we should have gotten is this, the crown piece of Macross toys, in my opinion, from the 80s. It's a 1/55th scale Takatoku High Metal Valkyrie, which should have been the perfect transition for Robotech. But unfortunately, Hasbro beat them to the punch, and they must have licensed out the entire run of Takatoku Valkyries to produce their Jetfire figure, which is seen here. What we ended up getting instead was this sort of mismatched, half prototyped vehicle that looked like originally it was supposed to have a transformation, but they cut it in the middle. So you ended up with this Super Veritech Fighter, which only had a couple of the pieces of the armor. It had the wrong amount of head lasers for the head sculpt, and you could obviously see the tooling that was meant to transform this from Jet to Guardian to Battloid mode. On a reasonably good side, though, it did have a cockpit that you could put the figure into, but it sort of missed the whole entire point of bringing transforming robot mecha to the market if all you could do is fly your jet around and not engage the Zentradi in the way that the vehicle had originally been imagined. Instead, what we got was this sort of chibi version of the Veritech fighters that could transform, but they were obviously, even to a child, not anywhere near as cool as that Takatoku Valkyrie. I mean, they just looked ballooned out and cartoonish, so I think some of these might have languished on the shelves. But getting back quickly to the Harmony Gold cash grab and who they gave licenses to and what they imported, we ended up having some really obscure stuff, like this strange cannon, which had nothing to do with Robotech or Macross. And also Revell handling the heavy lifting for the model kits as well as the Robolinks. And we just ended up with some strange vehicles and characters marked as Robotech Defenders, which really had absolutely zero to do with Macross as a whole. It was just another It was really just another part of the cash grab, but they did actually come out with some transforming model kits, so I guess they had that going for them. And here we can see Matchbox's subline of metal destroids. I don't know why they made the choice to package these differently. So far we've seen 3 different sublines from Robotech, and they just don't look like they belong together. I mean, half of this stuff you could just walk by on the shelf and not know that you were looking at Robotech product, which, as I mentioned earlier, Hasbro is the master of streamlining and branding. So you would walk down the aisle and see Transformers and knew that you were looking at Transformers toys. That's probably why the Robolinks sort of went unnoticed and were never connected to Robotech, because they were just in some obscure silver packaging, which we're going to explore here in just a second. So this is how Robolinks originated. In Takara packaging, it was originally called Blockman, and the idea was that you could actually take these little 2-inch tall robots, which featured pegs and ports, and connect them together like a building block, or connect various parts to them to create different types of models. And in my opinion, it was one of the most brilliant mixing of the building toy concepts and robots together. I loved these things as a kid. So let's take a look at a couple. We'll start off with the packaging, which just had this very bland sort of silver lined panel type of a thing with a couple of pictures of the model kit. The Robotech branding, it does not stand out on the package whatsoever, and because these were never part of the cartoon, you would have never had any inkling as to what or where this came from or what it was. But when you open them up, you are immediately greeted by that classic styrofoam 80s toy tray. Oh man, I can just smell it now. I love it. Brings back a lot of good memories. But you would end up having a section where it showed all the little robots as well as the parts that would hook together. And if you flip the packaging over, it would kind of give you an overview of the different stuff that you could build. Actually, I thought that was a really cool feature, and it showed all of the gear and the armor. Now, they made a lot of different sets, or I should say imported them, and they ranged from anything from a small car up to like some sort of like large robots and land vehicles. But what was really neat about these smaller kits is that they usually came with some snap-on armor for your Blockman. So you would end up having enough parts to convert it into a car or a plane or a drill or whatever it was, but you also got some really cool looking armor, so you could gear these guys up and you could snap on guns and everything. I thought that they were just terrific little figures for just having 4 points of articulation. So I know that Revell brought several of the kits in, and you can see on the front of the package art that they are noted as Force 40, Force 32. I don't believe that we had a full run 1 through 51. I think it was just imported in select kit sizes so that they could hit price points. But in taking a look, they were incredibly creative. They had nice bright colors. The kits could form more than just one type of configuration, so there was a lot of play value in it, and I just loved getting creative with these when I was a kid. So I want to know what you guys think. I know that you remember these, whether you found them in the bottom of a bin that you got at a flea market or in a parts lot. Let me know how you felt about this hidden gem of a toy line. Hit me up in the comments section below, or go over to Facebook and check out the Plastic Adventures toy community. It's a really great place to share news and to say, hey, I remember those things. So until next time, we'll see you in the toy aisles.